I'd like to introduce to you Desiree Broussard. She is the Chief of Protocol of the United States Air Force Warfare Center in Nellis Air Force Base, located in what I call the city that never sleeps. I'm sure many of us do, Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. Desiree has been in the hospitality industry for nearly 30 years, 20 of those in the United States Air Force as an officer, and the majority of those 20 years she has served in the protocol office in many commands and environments. Desiree and I have worked together once or twice, just with overlapping events. She is a certified etiquette consultant through the Etiquette Institute of St. Louis, Missouri, the Inside Out School of Etiquette, the Accredited Protocol School of Washington, and a member of Protocol and Diplomacy International. Today, she will share with us the fun of being Chief of Protocol at the United States Air Force Warfare Center in Las Vegas, Nevada. Good morning, Desiree. I know it's early for you on the West Coast, United States. Thank you. Over to you.
Good morning. Can you all hear me okay?
We hear and see you.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks so much for the introduction. It is fun out here. It is not too early for me. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning so that when all the DC emails come in, I'm able to answer them before I even get into my office. So if y'all would, I believe there's a video queued up for me. If you wouldn't mind hitting that video, I'd like to show you that video first and give you a visual of who we are before I get started on my topic. The only thing that would be better with this conference is if I could see everybody. I really love to feed off of the connection and the people. I hope that video pumps you up because it pumps me up every time I see it. I love what we do out here in Las Vegas at the Warfare Center. I'm gonna pop over and share my screen real quick so I can pull up some slides here. Let me know if you all can see.
We got them.
Okay. All right, so what I want to say first before I even forget is to thank you for all the organizers for asking me to be here and for putting this together. We all know the work that goes into this. I love listening to everybody this morning because you know that you're in the right place. You feel like we've met already. I hear everybody speaking. And I feel like if we could all just be in the same room, you probably couldn't break us away for about 2-3 days. So it's amazing out here. It's great to be a part of what the message was for this conference, to bring about positive change in our world and to spotlight this profession that we love. We absolutely have to love it for us to do this. It takes a little bit more. It's a faster pace than most positions across the globe. And connection is what fuels us, right? And we help enable those connections. So what I want to talk to you today about is who we are at the Warfare Center. I know that I didn't know a whole lot. I know this sounds really terrible, and I'll explain some of that in a second here, but who we are, what we do, how I got here, what things are different in protocol for this environment, and those tips and tricks that I've learned across the way that will hopefully help you all in what you do. So that first slide here shows the beauty, right? So what you saw in that video is what we call red flag. It's an exercise, it's an international exercise. Top Gun is coming out. So for those of you that might know Top Gun, we are not Top Gun. Top Gun is the Navy, but we're the Air Force. And at the Warfare Center, we are the combat aviation training environment. So people come out here 3 different times a year. We have US only, we have coalition, and then we also have international. We have the Thunderbirds, and yes, they are as beautiful and as incredible as you think they are if you've had the chance to see them. The best part is that I get miniature free air shows every now and then whenever they're practicing out here or departing or returning from location. We have about 10,000 people at the installation. So we are small in terms of some of the other installations, but I tell you what, we are mighty. We're absolutely mighty out here. We live in the middle of the desert. We are in the Mojave Desert, but we are surrounded by beauty out here. We have California, Arizona, Nevada, the Grand Canyon. And of course, as Miss LaDonna was saying, we are in the city that never sleeps, the entertainment capital of the world, and literally 8 minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. If you noticed in that video, you could see some of the aircraft taking off with the skyline of Las Vegas. I literally will come out of my office in the mornings and I can see the skyline. I can see the stratosphere and I can see the wheel. So, and I have the pictures up here because I wanted to make sure folks, just in case you haven't been to Las Vegas or just in case you're planning on a visit, that's where we are there on the west, close to California. So how I got here, let me tell you, full disclosure. See if I can change my slide here. I got here 2.5 years ago, and I have to absolutely confess, you know, I've grown up in the military. My dad was in for 30 years. I've served for 20. Some of that is part-time service and full-time civilian service that if I had more time, I'll explain about. But I didn't know about Nellis Air Force Base. So in the past 15 years, I spent at Scott Air Force Base in the Midwest of the United States, and I worked for a 4-star commander. So the last position I held was the Chief of Protocol at Air Mobility Command, where I traveled a lot. We hosted large-scale conferences, we trained, we taught, we hosted international dignitaries. And I thought that I was at the busiest level, obviously not as Ms. LaDonna was at the Air Force level. There's a few levels above that, but I thought that I'd kind of hit the pinnacle of busyness. My husband and I wanted to move to the West Coast to be near family, and Nellis was perfect. We loved the Las Vegas area. There's an Air Force base, great. Started applying, got the position, got there, boom, I'm busier than I have ever been. I dropped from a 4-star level command to a 2-star level command. But when you put Las Vegas and Nellis Air Force Base to the drive and the lure of the lights and the fun of Las Vegas, along with what we do here at Nellis Air Force Base with the warfighter training, it is a constant revolving door. So some of these pictures up here show you a variety of the things that we host out here. As the Chief of Protocol, I literally support 3 commanders. So before I had 1 4-star and I kind of supported some others that fell underneath. Here I have 3 different separate entities, which can get a little tricky because in each of those commands, there's events that happen, visits, ceremonies, and events that happen in each of those commands. So in the past year, we've hosted dignitaries from Israel, from Saudi Arabia, from Finland, from Sweden. We had Germany. In a few weeks, I have a NATO French 4-star coming in, possible Qatari. Germany will probably come back. So international visits are constant out here. That bottom left picture was a recent visit we did with 3-star Saudi, who's also a prince. That was very unique and very interesting for us out here. Presidential, in all my years of protocol, I have not seen presidential in 2.5 years. And even with COVID, I've seen 4 so far. So they like to land here. Las Vegas, obviously a hotbed for many reasons. And it is amazing to work with Secret Service and all the security forces and agents and all the many people that come in for those very high level, short notice, as you all know, visits. We'll have the governor of Nevada out here. On the bottom right, we recently hosted the Tuskegee. We had Tuskegee Gunnery award ceremony for a gentleman who hadn't been for the Tuskegee Airmen Group, who hadn't recognized for a gunnery competition, and that was actually on local or national news. And so we got to be a part of that and put together that ceremony out here. In addition to the visits that we do, we host ceremonies. It's ceremonies are us out here. In these pictures, you'll see a prisoner of war missing in action. So we'll do that annually with one of our POWs that are here pictured with his back to us. Change of command ceremonies. A lot of the events we host in hangars, which bring on its own challenges out here, are change of commands ceremonies. And then the bottom right was our 9/11 memorial ceremony for the anniversary. But how is protocol different out here? You know, we're all busy. And like I said, the bright lights of Vegas seem to draw folks in. It's amazing how many DVs just show up and they say, oh, hey, I just happen to be downtown in Las Vegas. I'd like to pop in for a visit. And I thought, I bet you did. Being at the Warfare Center, we are a fighter community. So with all those fighter aircraft, it is a different type of community. I am surrounded by people in flight suits, people who would love to be flying before doing any kind of paperwork on the ground, which I tell you makes for very interesting coordination with VIP visits. The noise of the fighter aircraft is something that I had forgotten about. When I started in the military back in the early 2000s, I started at a fighter base and I was used to that. And then I moved into a mobility base. So there was heavier aircraft, not as much aircraft flying around in our location. We have to do what we call quiet hours out here for ceremonies that we are going to host outside. And if y'all can imagine how I remembered that we have to do quiet hours, right when we're doing one of the POW MIA ceremonies, I hear engines starting in the back because the base, for as much as we do out here, the base is pretty small. And that gut wrenching moment where you realize that you need to start doing quiet hours out here. I deal with a lot of transient folks. So I'm mostly military out here, which means most of my staff and the people that work to help put on all of these events out here, they rotate in a couple of years. So I have been building over the last 2.5 years that I've been here, a lot of continuity and checklists so that things like quiet hours are not forgotten. But it's unique. So it's not just busy, but it's also highly transient, which puts me as a civilian in this position, a place of I'm constantly training. So I've been hosting a lot more trainings out here to help make my job easier and to help make their lives easier as they plan all these things. The security here is much higher. Because of the missions, we are a testing, training, and tactics base. So we test and we train the warfighter. We literally have huge desert land out here for the aircraft to go out and practice their warfighting. Because of what we do out here in the practice and the testing and the training that we do, it is a highly secured area. There are places across the installation I can't even get into, which makes it hard for protocol work. Some of the seating and organization I have to do on the outside with the hand-drawn seating chart, give that to the people who do have access to that room, and then give them all the drink preferences, the setup. I have to lay out things exactly how I want it, give that to that individual and hope that it looks right and it is right. And for all of us protocol people, we know it kind of makes us a little anxious when we can't go in and triple check something to make sure it's right. For example, just this past Friday out here, we hosted the Secretary of the Air Force, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, 2 US senators and quite a few support staff on there. And we had one of those moments where I had to trust what was going in on one of the classified locations. It's much more casual here. You'll see this is kind of my style in general. I keep this style, but like I said, I'm surrounded by flight suits. It's hot, it's dusty. A lot of people are in casual attire, but I really fight to maintain a corporate feel for my position. Because of what we do, it's so crucial. We have to work with the local community, high-level dignitaries, on-base commanders, and then all the people, from the most junior airmen and members of our community all the way up to the highest. And in a moment's notice, I have to switch gears and communicate and work with everybody, all in between all of those things to make an event happen. So I maintain a little bit more of a professional presentation because I think they need it. I know they need it. And then I'm ready at a moment's notice to go take care of events when they do drop in on us at the last minute. The wind out here is unbelievable. I had to learn that the hard way. You wear a nice dress and then you have to go to the flight line maybe to go greet some of our people coming in. And so hold on to that skirt and don't wear skirts out here. We're all busy, right? We're all unique. And I hope this kind of gives you a good idea of what we do out here. But let me talk to you about what I've learned over the years and how I think it can help you as new or even seasoned protocol officers. As I listened to everybody this morning, I learned something from everybody. One of the biggest things that I do that I've done throughout my career is I've style shifted. I was over at the Protocol School of Washington just a few weeks ago, and we talked about style shifting. I didn't know that it had a name for what I did, and I talked to you about how I kind of switch from my corporate style and go back to the warfighter or to the pilot, where they're very casual, and then I have to go meet 4 stars. But I have to style shift for each of those people. So if I am too formal and too corporate with my fighter pilots, I will lose their interest. They are fast, they are smart, they don't mess around. Like I said, they'd rather be flying. So I really have to style shift from them, pop into my 2 stars office and speak to him, and then switch gears to young airmen who are maybe volunteering for us and be able to communicate properly and quickly. Like I said, it's fast out here, and the fighter community doesn't mess around. The VIPs drop in the last minute, and my, like I said, the presidential arrivals that come in that I hadn't had to deal with ever in my career. It's fast and it's quick. So I always tell my team it's easier to keep up than it is to catch up. So a lot of people like to sit and wait for their emails to pile up and kind of organize and go through. And what I tell my team is that is not what's going to work for us here. My folks will fuss at me because in the morning I will clear through emails in the morning so that I can clear all the things that I don't need. And as soon as I walk into the office on Monday morning, that I'm ready to go with the answers, because it moves so fast and I might have up to 10 visits in 1 week. It's always easier to keep up than it is to catch up. Another thing I talk about is responding versus reacting. You know, how we react is a reflection on us. People come to us with some pretty crazy ideas, right, at the last minute, and they want us to work miracles with no notice. I react with kindness and professionalism and respect, even if in the back of my mind, I might be rolling my eyes. You can't do that though, because they don't understand where you're coming from. You don't understand where they're coming from. So I always tell my folks to respond. Let's not react. Let's just respond. What can we do? What is it that we're looking for? Another thing that I've taught my people out here is to tell people no. We're in positions where we frequently have to tell folks no, and sometimes as their senior people. You don't want to say no, we can't do that. What we want to do is tell people what we can do for them, what office can help them. And that's a big turning piece, because we're not pushing into any kind of conflict and back and forth. We are saying what we can do, where they can go, and it helps get them the answer that they need. A lot of times they're coming for us just for the answers, right? They don't know exactly what we do. Sometimes they mix us with different offices within the command. Public affairs is one of them. We are not public affairs. We are not media. But I will often switch gears and say, let me tell you what we can do. And the biggest thing to me is to have fun. I remember a moment one time when I was at a conference at my old position, and there was a name tagger seating that was incorrect. And I couldn't believe it was incorrect, because we had gone over this 10 different times and the wrong person saw it, and it was embarrassing. And I'm walking down towards the seat to go fix it. And you realize that your hands are clenched, right? And then you have that moment when you realize you were just way too stressed over a seat tag. Let's take it down a notch. What we do is important, but what we do is not life or death. And so I tell my folks to take that with a grain of salt, ease up a little bit, be kind to yourself, be kind to the people that we're working with. Let's work our best to get the job done. When we make mistakes, it is okay. How we respond to that and how we fix that is really the key to our success. Every single one of us in this protocol forum, whether we're new or old, and I think we should have a whole forum just on protocol mistakes. We will make them. We will continue to make them. They will happen. So how we respond and react to that, and to have fun with what we're doing, because a lot of times those mistakes are the stories that we talk about later and we have a good giggle. Now, it might take a little while for us to get a giggle because we're a little nauseated at the mistake that went down, right? But it's okay. So this brings me just to my last slide of this beautiful skyline, which is a skyline I get to see every single day when I'm at work. And one of our aircraft that are out there, I mean, we look down the flight line and there's 192 aircraft on our flight line at times, and they're flying constantly. So I hope you understand a little bit about who we are at the Warfare Center at Nellis Air Force Base. You know, I came here on purpose to Nevada, but completely and accidentally walked into one of the busiest places for protocol in the United States Air Force, but it is one of the best jobs I've ever had. I thank you all for your time today. And I think that we're going to open it up. I don't know if there's any questions at this point, but thank you so much again to all the planners and everybody put this together. And for those of you that are attending out here today.
Desiree, thank you very much for that outstanding presentation. I can feel just being back there at Nellis. I've obviously never worked there, but I've attended, as you know, and been there for a couple of conferences, and kind of seen the strip on my own once or twice. You know, kind of dropping in and saying, "Oh, hey, do you think I can get a visit?" It's just a great place to be. And yes, and I can attest, it is busier than one could imagine. So we do have a couple of questions here. And I know everybody, we're at time, but please, I hope you guys can just hang out a little bit longer. The first question is from Eric. How do you balance protocol as a chief of protocol for the United States Air Force and family and work in a city that never sleeps?
I have a very patient husband. You have to really take care of yourself physically and mentally. And I don't, if most of you didn't realize, I actually have two jobs. So I'm, the chief of protocol here, but then I'm also the director of personnel for the Nevada National Guard. And so I add another layer of responsibility in there. I don't have children. That does make it easier. And I have a family that understands the pace of what I do, but you also really have to carve out time for yourself, and you have to fight for that time, and you have to trust your team, and you have to protect your time as well as protect your team's time during those moments, because life is life. Events never stop, but you have to reset yourself, because if you're not recharged with your family, with your own personal desires, goals, and the things that you're doing, you will not be of worth to anybody. I've had to learn that the hard way later in life. But yeah, it's a hard balance, but it is doable, but you do have to fight for that. And routine is probably my best friend.
Yes, and we most certainly do. And I'm sure many of us here can attest to that. I have another, Nikki Krikor is here. Hello, Nikki. This is great. So I have a great question here. Desiree, what are the security challenges you face when utilizing electronic communications on base? For example, do you use specific e-invites, registration software that is compliant with the Department of Defense security? And she says, great to see you, by the way.
So can you read the very beginning of that question again?
Yes. What are the security challenges you face when utilizing electronic communications on base? So like e-invites or whatever. Yeah, go ahead.
So I don't put anything security driven in my e-invites, anything like that. Obviously, if my e-invites are social in nature, those are fine, no issue. If I have, for example, last week's DV visit was a prime example. I have a bunch of people coming from 4 different locations to be here to attend some very high level meetings. I don't touch the security. Any of the security questions that come in, I put the primary people directly in connection with our security folks. I don't get involved and I don't get mixed in. There are, within one meeting, there could be 6 layers of security. And I hope I'm answering this question. So I leave it out of Excel spreadsheets. I don't do anything with security. I also have to be careful that anything goes in secure email unsecure, then that can wipe out our systems. So I take that security with hands off. I let security work through security and I don't touch it. Now I ask the question and say, has anybody asked this question? Do we know the level of which we're dealing with? Does this room match the security requirements that we need? But after that, I stay out of it. I've got one POC in my office who is read in, quote unquote, is what they call it, at the right level. He works the security and I don't touch it. And then I triple check when I get there to make sure the people that are coming actually have the clearance to get into that location. So I hope that answers that question.
What about your systems? Do you have to use anything special, or when you send some information out, hey, DV1 is coming or whatever, do you use code words? Do you have to use a special software of any kind? Or
I don't use any software.
Okay.
We do have, for those of aren't familiar with the military side, we do have SIPRNet, which is our security email. If my visiting office requires that I work on that secure platform, then I do it. If my other visitors require coded words, then I put coded words on there. I defer to the office of the highest ranking that's visiting to determine how they want us to communicate. If we need to limit email communication, if we need to limit actual names. So the higher up they are, the more often we'll do that. And I will put codes like DV2-A for maybe air, DV2-S, and I'm just making something up right now, for senators. So I make it to where, and then I let commanders know what I'm saying in those emails so that everybody knows what I'm talking about when I push those cryptic emails out.